I've been a wedding photographer for nearly 10 years and I thought I'd seen it all. Trashy, beautiful, tragic, hilarious, or just bizarre. I have stories. But this one, I will never forget. First time I saw the bride, Tanya, I had a brief moment of I don't know how old this girl is. She could have been 16, she could have been just 18. Definitely not over 20 though. I've seen young marriages when it's a shotgun affair, but then I met the groom. Marcel Wingate. Who was definitely no younger than 30. And Marcel was just, something felt off. The man was giant. When he shook my hand and introduced himself, I barely repressed a shiver. But years of practice helped me to smile and act like there wasn't something slimy about all of this. Tanya never said a word when she was made over for her big day. Only Carol did, chirping and twittering about how about you make her hair a little bigger or make her eyes pop, she has such pretty eyelashes. Luckily Carol had to go have a smoke every 15 minutes so the makeup and hair people could have a moment to actually work. By the time it was all over, Tanya looked perfect. Her dress was basically a white ball gown, a tiara was placed in her strawberry blonde hair, cheeks blushing a perfect pink. But unlike most brides, she still hadn't said a word and those weren't sure as hell tears of joy she was holding back. I'm sure you've heard about the first look photo fad. I find it great to get that perfect expression a groom makes when he sees the bride in her dress for the first time. It's usually quite cute. This was the first time I've shot a first look photo or I truly believe it was the first time the bride and groom have actually looked at each other. Marcel did seem to have his breath taken away by his lovely bride, but her expression was less than thrilled as he took her hand and gave it a tight squeeze. My stomach turned when he leaned in for a kiss on the cheek and she quite obviously flinched. It's time I put a pin on the myth that arranged marriages only happen in foreign countries, and only people from certain cultures take part in it. They happen all the time in the US, and more often than not it's an old man who wants a virgin bride, and by virgin I mean still in high school. This wouldn't even be the first one I was hired to photograph. I managed to catch Tanya alone in the room she got ready in, sitting next to the open window and twirling an unlit cigarette between her fingers. Need a light? I offered as I came in. No thanks. I don't smoke, but they say it makes you feel better, right? She said, looking up at me with those doll-like blue eyes. It also gives you lung and throat cancer. I took the cigarette from her and lit it up for myself. But I'm a bad example, so do as I say, not as I do. Now that got a smile out of her, even if it only lasted a second. How often do you smoke? She asked. Depends on the day. Usually I have 2 or 3. Bad day I can have a few more. I lowered the cigarette and looked down at her. How old are you, Tanya? 19. 20 in a few weeks. I have a bit of a baby face. She poked one of her cheeks. Why do you care? I glanced at the door to make sure Carol wasn't going to barge in. Tanya, are you not okay with this? The wedding? I asked quietly. Tanya's eyes widened. Damn, you're good. She also glanced at the door. Harold, my stepdad, arranged all of this. If he had it his way it would have happened when I was 15, but Marcel kept delaying. Business, apparently. He tried to delay another year but my dad implied he had other offers. She shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. If I said no, Harold would kick me out and cut me off, frozen my bank account. I'd have nothing and no one, and I don't know what I'd do if that happened. I reached into my purse and pulled out one of my business cards. Flipped the card over. It has a number for a woman's shelter. They specialize in helping women escape from dangerous home situations. Hides them, helps them get started in a new city if need be. Below that is my personal home number, if you just need to talk, okay? Tanya took the card and clung onto it tightly before tucking it into her bra. You might be the nicest person I've ever met, she murmured. I gave her shoulder a squeeze. I try, I said before extinguishing the cigarette on the windowsill. If you need to escape any time tonight, just ask me to help you go to the bathroom. We can pull a whole runaway bride, I joked. That got another laugh out of her, just in time for her mom to pop into the room. Well, What's taking so long? Hurry up, the wedding's going to be starting in 15 minutes, and I don't want you to cry and make your face all blotchy and ugly. She whined. Tanya's brief joy faded and she gave me one more sad look before following her mother out. The ceremony would have been so much more beautiful if I didn't know the dirty little secret behind it all. Tanya didn't smile once. I don't think even one of those bridesmaids was an actual friend of hers, or at least not a sincere one. When the priest said you may kiss the bride, Tanya let one tear slip down her cheek when Marcel leaned down to kiss her. I was seriously considering calling the cops, but what could they do? Tanya would likely cave and say nothing was wrong, and since she wasn't a minor they couldn't label Marcel a pedo and her stepfather a child seller. It still didn't make the situation any less crappy. All I could do was snap pictures of the worst day of Tanya's life. At the reception I was constantly being nagged by Carol about what pictures to take to the point where I wanted to rip her hair out, but I did notice something different about the first dance between the couple. Tanya at first was stiff as a board, reluctant to even touch Marcel, but he leaned down and whispered something in her ear. Her entire demeanor changed in a blink of an eye to one of surprise, and I managed to read her lips. Really? Marcel nodded and I managed to catch a picture of the first smile Tanya had since she said I do. By the end of the dance, she was actually starting to get into it, resting her head on his chest as they swayed to 1,000 years. It was a complete 180 change. Tanya was now one of the happiest, and dare I say it, flirtiest brides I've ever seen. She even leaned up to kiss him on the cheek as they sat down, something that took even Marcel by surprise judging by how he blushed. I genuinely started to wonder if Marcel slipped something in her drink to get her acting so happy when Carol started to nag me again about where her husband was. She was the kind of mother who forgot this was her child's wedding instead of her own, and she wanted pictures of her and Harold. In order to get away from her I told her I'd go find him. He'd been hitting the open bar a little hard that night. I assumed he was in the bathroom either throwing up or cheating on his wife. When I approached the men's room, I heard something that sounded like gargling or swallowing. I opened the bathroom door. I made eye contact with Harold. Or rather, I made eye contact with Harold's head. It was sitting in the sink, expression twisted in abject horror. The room was soaked in blood, body parts strewn around the floor. Meanwhile, Marcel had stripped out of his tuxedo and was currently swallowing Harold's arm. Whole. Now I was wondering if I'd had something slipped into my champagne. Humans can't just unhinge their jaw like that, each gulp taking Marcel's arm deeper down his throat. I saw the tips of Harold's fingers disappear with a small wave of goodbye, and then I dropped my camera. Yes, I heard something break. No, I didn't care. I just saw the groom eat the goddamn father of the bride. Marcel's head shot up in his eyes. Before now they were a dull, watery gray, but now they were mottled brown and red with slitted pupils. I felt frozen when those eyes looked at me. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. One moment. Marcel turned to the sink that was free of a man's head and vomited. I heard several things clatter on the porcelain before he fetched them out and washed them off. With an embarrassed clearing of his throat, he walked up to me and pulled me into the bathroom. I thought I was dead, but instead Marcel placed a diamond in my palm. For the camera, I didn't mean to startle you, he said. I managed to get out as I stared at the literal handful of diamonds. This would pay for more than the camera. Why did you dash? Devour Harold? Oh, I've wanted to do that for years. Marcel chuckled as he grabbed some paper towels to wipe off his chin, like that would take away from the fact he was still naked and bloody in front of me. A terrible person actually tastes quite divine. You would taste absolutely terrible. It'd be like swallowing nails. Meanwhile, a man who offers his own daughter as a sacrificial lamb to something he knows eats humans, he tastes like the richest cut of steak, cooked medium rare and seasoned to perfection. I clutched the diamond. You're not going to hurt Tanya? I asked. Marcel shook his head vigorously. God, no. I kept delaying the wedding in hopes that she'd manage to find a way out, but I think Harold was getting bored with my cold feet. There would be plenty of other people willing to pay for her, even if my payment would be easily thrice what others would offer. God, I was starting to feel a little dizzy. Here I was, talking to a human-eating groom. I glanced out the door and a horrible idea entered my brain. one that would surely earn Marcel's good favor and help out Tanya. So if I told Carol she could find her husband in the men's room? I asked. Marcel seemed puzzled for a second but caught on quickly. With a nod, he picked up the head and tossed it into one of the stalls. I heard it splash in one of the toilets and I almost started giggling. I was nearing hysteria. Go right ahead. I'll be waiting, he said as he kicked more limbs out of sight. I almost left when I had to ask one more question. What the hell are you? Marcel cocked his head to the side before he changed, just for a second. One moment he was a blood-soaked man, absolutely horrifying but normal. The next he was a snake, sort of. His body was gone, replaced by the body of an anaconda, but his head was still the same, minus the flick of a slim, forked tongue from his mouth. Then he was back to normal. He responded with a shrug. Funnily enough, I was hoping you'd tell me. I don't have a clue. I left the bathroom and bumped into Carol almost immediately in the hallway. Well, where is he? She snapped. I just pointed a thumb towards the bathroom. Think he's not feeling so well, I said. I watched long enough for her to open the door and for a scaled tail to shoot out, snag her around the arm, and drag her into the bathroom before I headed back to the wedding. The problem seemed to solve itself that night. Marcel came back, the men's room locked after apparently someone got quite sick in there.